Start with a girl who does not look like she is trying to become a weapon. She is not walking into the frame with the cold confidence of someone born for domination. She is softer than that, almost breakable at first glance. Blonde hair, thin shoulders, a voice that sounds like it could crack if the room gets too loud. But that is the trap. Rosé's power was never loud at the beginning. It was not the kind of power that kicks the door open. It was the kind that waits in the corner, lets everyone underestimate it, then leaves a sound behind that people cannot forget. Born Roseanne Park in New Zealand and raised in Australia, she did not come from the usual fantasy version of K-pop stardom. She was not born inside Seoul's entertainment machine. Her first world was quieter, wider, more ordinary. Church songs, school days, a guitar, English in her mouth before Korean fame ever claimed her name. Then came the audition. One decision, one room, one voice. And suddenly, the girl from Australia was pulled into YG Entertainment, one of the coldest factories of star power in K-pop. There, softness is not enough. Talent is not enough. A pretty voice is not enough. You have to be shaped, cut, polished, repeated, corrected, and remade until even your vulnerability looks expensive. Rosé survived that process without losing the thing that made her strange. Her voice, not the cleanest voice, not the biggest voice, not the safest voice. A voice with a wound inside it. That became her signature. In BLACKPINK, where everything could look sharp, rich, dangerous, and untouchable, Rosé sounded like the emotional crack in the glass. Jennie had the bite, Lisa had the attack, Jisoo had the classic beauty, Rosé had ache. And ache is dangerous, because people do not just hear it, they project themselves into it. That is why Rosé's early image felt different from the usual idol myth. She was glamorous, yes, she was styled, trained, packaged, photographed, and sold like every global star. But underneath the luxury, fans kept finding loneliness. A girl holding a guitar, a voice stretching over heartbreak, a face that could stand under million-dollar lighting and still look like she was remembering something private. That contradiction made her magnetic. She was BLACKPINK's fragile flame, delicate enough to protect, famous enough to envy, talented enough to threaten expectations. And from the beginning, the public did something cruel with her softness. They turned it into a role. The emotional one, the sweet one, the sad girl, the voice. But no one stays a role forever. Rosé was never just the girl who could make pain sound pretty. She was a warning in slow motion, a soft voice preparing to become global noise. Then the girl with the wounded voice became part of a machine that did not know how to whisper. BLACKPINK was not built to feel small. From the first second, the group moved like a warning shot. Expensive, sharp, international, almost too confident for rookies. They were not introduced as girls asking for permission. They were introduced as a brand that already knew the world would look, and Rosé had to find her place inside that storm. That was the strange thing about her early BLACKPINK image. She did not need to be the loudest member to be essential. She was not always the one breaking the beat open. She was not always the face people used to define the group's attitude. But when her voice entered, the song changed temperature. Suddenly, the luxury had feeling. In a group famous for impact, Rosé became the aftertaste, the emotional residue, the part that stayed in the chest after the beat dropped and the choreography ended. She could make a chorus feel less like a hook and more like a confession. She could turn a bridge into a wound. She could stand inside songs built for domination and still make them sound lonely. That is not weakness. That is control disguised as fragility. As BLACKPINK grew, everything around them became bigger. Bigger stages, bigger fashion houses, bigger fandom wars, bigger expectations, bigger headlines. They became less like a normal girl group and more like a global event that happened in human form. Each member carried a different kingdom. Jennie had danger, Lisa had speed, Jisoo had elegance, Rosé had ache, and ache became marketable. That is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because the public loved Rosé's emotion, but sometimes only when it stayed beautiful. They wanted the sad guitar girl, the delicate blonde star, the main vocal who looked like she might cry under the spotlight but never actually break the illusion. Her pain had to be pretty. Her loneliness had to be fashionable. Her sincerity had to fit inside a campaign, a music video, a tour clip, a fan edit. Then came her solo era. On the Ground did not sound like an idol trying to prove she could be louder than the group. It sounded like someone standing in the middle of everything she had won and asking why victory still felt hollow. The message was almost too perfect for Rosé. You can fly across the world, become a face on billboards, wear the clothes, own the stage, hear millions scream your name, and still wonder what you were really chasing. That song mattered because it turned Rosé's softness into narrative. Not just a vocal colour, a point of view. She was no longer only BLACKPINK's emotional texture, she was a solo artist asking the central question of fame. If everyone is looking up at you, why do you still feel like you are searching for the ground? But solo success creates a new cage. Once Rosé stepped outside BLACKPINK, people began measuring her differently. Was she strong enough alone? Was her sound too soft? Was she artistic or just aesthetic? Was the guitar real identity or perfect branding? Did people love Rosé the musician, or did they love the idea of Rosé, the fragile global girl with a luxury sadness? That question followed her into everything. Because BLACKPINK gave her the world, but it also gave her a shadow. No solo move could be judged alone. Every song, every outfit, every stage, every interview carried the invisible weight of the group. She had to be grateful for the machine while proving she was more than one of its prettiest sounds. And that is what made Rosé's rise feel different. She was not fighting to be seen. She was fighting to be separated from the image that made her visible in the first place. Then came the song that was too catchy to behave. APT, 3 letters, 1 chant, one bright, ridiculous, addictive hook that sounded less like a single and more like a room suddenly losing control. And that was the problem, because Rosé had always been allowed to be emotional. She was allowed to be fragile, poetic, lonely, blonde under sad lighting, guitar in hand, voice cracking beautifully over heartbreak. That version of her made sense to people. They knew where to place her. But APT did not ask to be placed. It ran. It crossed languages, platforms, charts, countries, fan bases, radio formats, TikTok edits, award predictions, and comment sections. It was playful, loud, pink, unashamed. It did not sound like Rosé asking the world to understand her pain. It sounded like Rosé stealing the party and leaving everyone else to explain why they were dancing. Success should have made the story simple. It did not. Because when a woman becomes too successful, especially one from K-pop, the public starts looking for a way to shrink the achievement. Suddenly, the questions came dressed as analysis. Was it really Rosé's song, or was it Bruno Mars carrying it? Was she finally becoming global, or was she only borrowing Western validation? Was the song genius, or just a viral trick? Was she an artist, or a beautiful face attached to a perfect collaboration? That is how praise turns into interrogation. Nobody calls it jealousy, they call it critique. And Rosé became the perfect target because her image had always been built on softness. People were used to defending her as delicate, but APT made her impossible to treat like a delicate thing. The song was too massive, too bright, too unavoidable. It pushed her out of the sweet main vocal box and into a more dangerous category, a global pop player. That category has teeth. Once she entered it, every move became heavier. Every live performance was measured. Every chart record became a debate. Every mention of Bruno became a battlefield. If the song won, people asked who deserved the credit. If the song lost, people asked who deserved the blame. And that is the ugliest part of global fame. Even failure is not allowed to be private. After the award season conversations, Rosé found herself inside a strange new narrative. Not just the girl who made history, but the girl some people wanted to blame for how history unfolded. The same collaboration that helped lift her higher also gave critics a new weapon. They could say she needed Bruno. They could say Bruno was dragged into K-pop chaos. They could turn a joyful song into a courtroom. But maybe that reaction revealed more about the audience than about Rosé, because people liked her when her ambition looked wounded. They liked her when her sadness was pretty. They liked her when her voice sounded like longing. But when she became loud, successful, and commercially dangerous, the softness stopped protecting her. It made people angrier, as if Rosé had broken an invisible rule. As if she was supposed to remain the emotional girl in the corner of BLACKPINK, not step forward and become a headline powerful enough to shake the room. So no, Rosé's controversy was not a traditional scandal. It was something more modern, a backlash against scale, a punishment for becoming too visible, too successful, too difficult to reduce. And maybe that is when Rosé stopped being just the fragile voice. She became the argument. Today, Rosé does not look like a girl escaping BLACKPINK's shadow. She looks like someone who walked out of that shadow and accidentally became another one. For years, the question was whether Rosé could survive alone. Could the soft-voiced girl with the guitar stand without the group's black and pink armor? Could she be more than the emotional color inside a global machine? Could she turn pain into a solo identity strong enough to compete with the monster that made her famous? Then the answer came too loudly. She did not just survive, she expanded, and that expansion changed the way people looked at her. Because once Rosé became a global solo force, the public stopped treating her like someone who needed protection. The fragile girl image began to disappear, not because she became cold, but because success made her dangerous. Charts made her dangerous. Award stages made her dangerous. Western attention made her dangerous. A song that started like a playful chant became proof that Rosé was no longer only BLACKPINK's voice. She was a name that could move on its own. But independence is not freedom if everyone keeps asking who gave it to you. That is the new cage around Rosé. If she wins, people ask whether the collaboration carried her. If she breaks records, people ask whether K-pop fandom inflated them. If she is emotional, they call it branding. If she is confident, they call it ego. If she thanks BLACKPINK, they say she cannot stand alone. If she steps away from the group image, they say she forgot where she came from. There is no clean exit from a global girl group, only different kinds of judgment. And Rosé's current image lives inside that judgment. She is no longer only the delicate singer fans wanted to shelter. She is no longer only the Australian-Korean girl who sounded like heartbreak in luxury clothes. She is becoming something harder to categorize, a pop star with a soft surface and a machine of consequence behind every move. That is why her story feels more dangerous now than before. Not because she is falling, because she is rising in a way people cannot control. There is comfort in underestimating someone. It makes the audience feel powerful. For years, Rosé was easy to frame as underrated, overlooked, too gentle, too emotional, too dependent on the group's scale. But what happens when the underestimated one becomes unavoidable? The public has to choose, celebrate her or question her, love her or shrink her, admit she became powerful or pretend the power belongs to everyone except her. And maybe that is the real price of Rosé's solo era. She gained a bigger stage, but lost the innocence of being viewed as the hidden gem. Hidden gems are easy to love because they do not threaten anyone. Global forces are different. They make people compare, rank, resent, defend, attack. They turn music into a battlefield and a woman's success into a debate. Still, Rosé keeps moving. Not like the loudest person in the room. That was never her. She moves like someone who understands that softness can become a weapon if it refuses to apologize. Her voice still carries ache, but now the ache travels farther. Her image still has vulnerability, but now vulnerability stands under stadium lights and refuses to shrink. So where does that leave Rosé? Not free from BLACKPINK, not trapped by it either. She is somewhere more interesting, between gratitude and escape, between girl group history and solo mythology, between being protected and being feared. Rosé was once the fragile voice people wanted to save. Now she is the success people want to explain away. And that may be the clearest sign that she has finally become impossible to ignore.